That's amazing. Amazing. Late night, cinematic.
Jamal, while we're in the cinematic place, I
Uh-huh.
want you to answer a question for me.
What's that?
How do we embody main character energy without developing narcissism?
Yeah, I think to attack this question, we have to first define those terms. So I think, to me, main character energy is this notion of living your life as though you are the main character and being aware that you are writing your own autobiography with every decision that you're making in your life. Like I like to think about the different historical figures that we've all studied in the various different history books, so to speak, the Benjamin Franklins, the different, conquerors, leaders, the all these different people we admire. They had a story that they lived where they were the main character in that. You think about movies and how much they captivate us and all of this. So I think the notion of embodying a main character energy is living your life in like divine alignment and in a way that's the most like like something you're proud of. Like this is and commanding a certain presence around you. And the opposite of a main character would be what's referred to as an NPC. Many of you familiar if you're
An
not.
extra.
Yeah, it's like you someone who's just an extra on the side of the film. That's not really important. In a
Mhm.
video game, which is a great metaphor we're gonna use throughout this, um, it means a non-player character. So it's the kind of person that if you're in a video game, you're walking through a different, like a set, like through a map, and you talk to somebody, and they just hit you with a very just the same generic response, and that's all they are.
They
Whereas
they have these preset determined emotes that they can't really break free from.
yeah, and, like, that's all that they're programmed with, so the idea with the main character energy is, like, breaking out of that shallow persona, superficial layer of life and fully embracing, what Jung called your individuation. Um, so that's what we mean by main character energy, and then the term narcissism gets thrown around left and right, and it's one of these terms that's so charged and so misunderstood. Clinically, what that word means is essentially an inflated sense of grandiosity, self grandiosity, that's marked by a lack of empathy towards others and like an inability to see how your inflated grandiosity is impacting other people. Um, so people throw around narcissism loosely. It is like a clinically defined word. It comes from the myth of Narcissus, which is one of the Greek myths, and essentially in it, this man sees his reflection in like a pond, and when he sees it, he actually falls in love with his own image, and then that ends up, yeah. So, um, which that's a very important theme that we're going to touch on is the notion of falling in love with your own image
Interesting.
instead of like your own essence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I first wanted to define those two terms that we're going to be playing with today.
Mhm.
So yeah, what are your thoughts on how to
Yeah.
embody that?
I mean, there's so many layers I wanna take this conversation, but first and foremost, I think, there's a difference between main character and protagonist. Sometimes people are antiheroes, and there's, like, some charm, the different antiheroes that have been portrayed in movies along the way where there's this validation in narcissism, and it's almost, like, cute, where it's like, "Oh, he screwed that guy over, and it's kinda cute," he does all this other good stuff, he saves the day, so we look past it, and I think that's kinda given us, some sort of subliminal message to actually promote that grandiosity, that self-grandiosity. Again, it's like, it's justifiable, is your presence in this world a net positive, even if you do a few things wrong? Of course, that's probably most people's lives, but there's a difference when it's like, do you wanna be a protagonist, which is it's not something that is for the faint of heart, Like, you have this much time in a day, you have these many desires, you have this much time in your life, you have this many dreams, and, the self, it wants to fulfill those and often, like, support itself and serve itself. So, protagonist energy we go through this hero's journey of this hubris happening and refining us on like, hey, there's an importance on all these amazing qualities that you have. It's not that you don't get to like have fun and serve yourself in these ways, but overall, these are very rare skills that a lot of people don't have. And don't you want to use it for a better world? You know?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I think in both instances, there's a very fine line that we're going to be navigating and defining more clearly around what is a healthy level of self-worth and, like valuing and self-centeredness. The term self-centeredness is always thrown as a negative thing. But my question is what's wrong with base centering your life on yourself? You know what I mean? Like having a healthy center within yourself from which you operate. There's nothing on that's a healthy way in to operate your life. When people throw that term around, what they're usually referring to is it's a centeredness around the wrong center, around that one once again, that image, falling in love with the image that other people are seeing you as versus the genuine authentic you. So you see this a lot with
Mhm.
like celebrities, right? Where they have the delusions of grandeur and the megalomaniac kind of syndrome, where their particular image that's portrayed in the media, that's what they're in love with, but that's not who we are. In the Jungian psychology, we would refer to that as the persona, and that's the part of you that's visible and seen to the rest of the world. So I think that's an important distinguishing like line is that we all have that intermediary factor that relates to the world via these various different masks that we wear. And being able to rescind our identity from that, knowing that we are not our persona, that we are more than that. It's just a tool that allows us to be in the world. And I think part of healthy main character energy is like an awareness that you are an actor in this life. And in as an actor or actress, you're playing many different roles. And if you get too rigid on any particular role or you're just constantly playing, I mean, like Jim Carrey said it brilliantly. He said like depression happens when you're playing essentially a shitty character that's not who you are over and over again. And if you think about, I know when I've been the most depressed in my life is when I'm working a job or yeah, some form of work and vocation is a big part of that, but also the people that you're around. We always feel this notion of having to put on an act. You know what I mean? So you're putting on an act to fit in a role of a cashier or a clerk or within a certain family dynamic. And it's draining because you know that you have a deeper calling, a deeper mission to play in this life. So I think um yeah, there's a notion of a healthy narcissism. We could say a healthy relationship to your own desire to be great that is needed to become that main character. And
Yeah.
if not, then you're just always going to be playing these depressing characters that society is giving you. It's not actually your own chosen character or one that's predetermined, and it's like fate that you're just falling in alignment with.
Mhm. One of the biggest psyops on the planet is just trying to get you to fall in line, be that NPC, be that worker bee, kill. Um, in the American educational system, yeah, they boost some level of individuality and dream building, but overall, it's just enough to make you feel like you matter. Not that you don't, but again, there's just such a massive psyop to just like put you in your place, put you in, stay in your lane, bro. I made a little grimace. I don't know if you saw that when you're like, there's nothing wrong with being self centered. And I just started to think about all these, lame people that I know through the days. Because I'm like, if you're going to be a narcissist, this is what I said for 5 years as soon as I lived in Sedona. I was like, if you're going to be a narcissist, at least be cool.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, I am not trying to listen to some lame ass shit. And here's the thing, okay, we have so much time in a day. Do you think I want to listen to that? And what I'm saying here is be impact aware. Be aware of how your energy, your essence, your words, your presence, be aware of how that impacts people. There's two examples I want to share here. Okay, there's a protagonist, there's a leader. He has wisdom, strength, love, and compassion. The things that that bro can pull off by continuing to put the focus on himself and be like, all right, these are the moves I got to make. These are the pressures laid against me. Fuck those pressures. I'm going to make these moves. I'm going to overcome these things. And that's very different as someone like putting the focus back on themselves, using healthy influence. Again, there's so much chaos. There's so much just floating free radicals that we call people that have no clear path in life. And a leader is going to be like, hey, organizing, just organizing, rallying, strategizing things and making that happen. That's very different than some lame ass chick that has like when you see her or him, they're just quick to blow. They're quick to tell you how great they are. They're quick. And what do you think that does to your time? It wastes time. What do you think that does to your nervous system? You have to start to disassociate. You're like, if I can't leave, you should leave. But if you don't leave, it's like, damn, now I have to sit and listen to these people that are generally petty and insignificant, like not trying to hate. But again, there's a big cosmos up here with all these amazing traits that you can start to embody. And a lot of people are right here and being impact aware. It's what are those qualities doing to each other? And so,
I want to ask you
yeah,
really quick too.
yeah,
Another quality of narcissism I didn't highlight before was an excessive need for admiration,
yeah.
like having to constantly have others worship you. And
Mhm.
if they don't, being very sensitive to criticism. Anyone that doesn't worship you like a god needs to instantly be put down. And it's at the expense, it's a exaggerated self-importance at the expense of your own relationships where you can't even see how other people are jaded and pissed off by how much you're constantly demanding from them and all of that. So I
Mhm.
wanted to highlight because what you're speaking into, like these are narcissism is full blown out of control. Like
Mhm.
it is, I would argue it's never been higher
Yeah,
in history right now. And there's
that's
a lot of
true.
different factors why.
Social
So
media.
social media is a
Yeah,
big one. It also has to do with just the disintegration of communal structures within the West, the fragmentation,
that's another great
um,
point.
many different factors that have led to like you used to have your many different people and within the communal structures that were keeping you in check. And there were certain religious structures and frames that would prevent people from getting way too worshiping of their own
Yeah.
image. But now it's like you got mirrors in every room and social media and everything where we become so much more invested in our image without other people checking that. I mean, there's so many layers to why narcissism is on a rise like crazy. Um, but I just wanted to highlight that
It's a really,
excessive need
really,
for
really good
admiration, you
point.
know what I mean?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, and so again, it's just like I think impact awareness is everything because it's like the child, that I'm more focused on like building protagonist, because it's like this world it's a crazy world right now. And if you're siloed off into self-grandiosity in this era while like crazy shit's going down, we're supposed to be moving back, I think, in towards that communal structure that whole like, okay, what the hell is going on? These leagues are making moves against the common people. We're all busy chasing dopamine, trying to, some healthy things, get paper, find a mate, all that stuff. I just think like impact awareness is really what it comes down to. Like a child is not aware of how they are detrimental to their mother. Their mother's very compassionate, but at the end of the day, it's like you're taking a lot. And so it's like, do you want to be the main character that you think you're so cool and everyone else like we all have subconscious minds, and if every time I see you I feel like some level of drainage, eventually people start steering clear of you, eventually people start gossiping, talking shit. So it's like, understand that we have these subconscious minds, these flesh bodies that have their own intelligence. And it's like if you're more focused, it's not that you have to be like a deep servant to everyone in terms of like when you see someone, drop everything you're doing and take full care of them. But it's like what is that effect that you're having on them? And then you move into like just more of like a parent, like I take care of shit and I'm not so needy.
I think as I agree, I like that word impact awareness. You know, another phrase you could use is like relational feedback. Like to come into knowledge of self, we're self-conscious beings and relating to other self-conscious beings. So part of coming into greater self-knowledge is through seeing how you're mirrored, how other people see you, and being able to piece all the different things of like, oh, like first an openness to listen to other people about how they perceive you, and listen to the good and the bad and take it in. And that kind of builds awareness of your character structure. I want to go back to the video game metaphor as well, because I grew up playing video games like many of us and nowadays, and something that I've always thought about deeply is, like when you're designing a character, you have the different strengths and weaknesses and like all that kind of stuff. And I've always, when I found astrology, to me, it was like your natal chart is like your character defined in this like lifetime. You know what I mean? So I think part of an interesting thing to play with is like, all right, let's take the metaphor as though I'm in a video game right now and I have full autonomy to a degree within the boundaries of the system, within the coding that designs this whole thing. And let's say I'm born with a particular like character. Like now I like the idea of leveling up on so many different areas of your life. Like thinking about it like I'm starting at level 10 and I want to get to level 80. You know what I'm saying? And you look at the people we admire, like for instance, Ye, Kanye is one of my idols. He's always been. And I look at him as someone who's leveled up on so many aspects of life to get to where he's at. But we just see him in the limelight. We don't see all the things that happen behind the scenes to level up. So I think that's part of embodying that main character energy is being real with yourself about one, everyone has some kind of superpower, some kind of hidden gift, and it's not fully in your awareness. Because if you were fully aware of it, you'd be doing some kick-ass shit in the
Mhm.
collective, and people would be aware of you. And if you're
Yeah.
not doing that yet, you don't know your superpower yet. You know what I mean? So I think everyone that's an interesting challenge to put yourself. You want to be a main character. What's your superpower? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like microdosing trials because like there's levels to this shit, you know? And so it's like, what are your goals? Like it's really you can be like main character energy is just like a way of saying like have a healthy level of self-worth and self-confidence. But then there's like real fucking main character energy where it's like, okay, I do want to save the world. Someone told me I'm supposed to save the world. I gotta go like really do some crazy shit. And so it's like microdosing trial because these repetitions where you face a little bit of resistance, you have to develop those same skills. If you like, we look at animals, and like the theory of evolution is like polar bears got the warmest fur in the world because they were in the coldest temperatures.
Mhm.
These deep sea creatures have the ability to withstand that pressure due to evolution, due to stressors that put this signal on the body, and the body was like, all right, it's an alchemy. You know, this force comes in, you got to meet it with this force, and the synthesis is the growth.
Mhm.
And so it's like there's levels to this shit. Like until you start to realize, you know, it's really like sports is a great example. When you really dedicate to sports, I remember when I first started like doing really good in high school wrestling against some college athletes. And you get this thing that happens to your brain like if I hit this next level, what's the next level?
Mhm.
And I think people get caught in these little areas where they don't break through those plateaus. And when you do start to break through those plateaus, it releases the subconscious. Like the subconscious gets in this fixed identity of, I'm only this good at this thing. And through trial, you know, you get the new neural networks, you get the new spiritual prowess, break through that plateau, and your identity, you're going to realize it's not fixed. And that's the whole point of the hero's journey. It's like our identity isn't fixed.
Mhm.
You're supposed to be going through some stuff. And um,
Yeah, I mean, to bounce back on that too, like everybody thinks they're the shit deep down.
mhm.
Everyone, like if you go down to it, like what do you actually think about yourself? That's what the depth psychologists
She
discovered. It's the superiority complex. Everyone finds some things that they consider themselves to be great at, better than anyone else, and they don't communicate it. And their persona is all friendly and all these platitudes or whatever. But behind those masks, they think they're the shit. And that's like the narcissism that it might not get found in those clinical trials or assessment, but everyone has that to a degree. And that's the exact shit that you have to kill and sacrifice with the with those slaps in the face in reality that's like you're not the shit.
mhm.
You're not who the fuck you think you are.
But
And
you
like
can be,
but you can exactly that's like the paternal love. Like
but you need to get your act right. You
yeah,
know,
like
you
the
need
maternal love is like I love you no matter what. Paternal love is like you can do better. And I
Mhm,
and I and I'm pushing you to be better because I love you, so to speak. So it's like people are more often than not, so many people when they're not where they're at in their life, find all different kinds of ways to rationalize the complacency, being stuck on that plateau and not leveling up. And then part of that what's maintaining that loop is this like this hidden inner talk of I'm the shit when you're not really. Like objectively, you're not.
mhm,
Subjectively, you think you are, and that's fine. Like there's importance of having self-esteem, right? And that's the whole part of the fake it till you make it kind of thing. Like
mhm,
there our feelings about ourself especially will imprint and create our reality, right?
mhm,
That's the whole
mhm,
law of assumption, Neville Goddard. We spoke about that before. So like having a sense of confidence is very, very important. And you need to like almost have a healthy level of delusion,
mhm,
like almost deluding yourself that you're somewhere that you're not yet. But but that's the art as well. You know
mhm.
what I mean? That's when it's excessive and just completely out of touch with reality and there's no relational feedback to put you in check. That's just straight up narcissism. But when it's like just enough to where it's pushing you, fueling that leveling up in whatever domain that you're seeking mastery in, then that's when it fuels that. And if you don't have that of, "Oh, I'm just humble, I'm nobody," and you play that card, then that's where I think you start to fall into the NPC traps of the society giving you roles, you know what I mean?
Mhm. One of the things I think is so important is, like, paying your dues. It's like,
Mm.
know that there's chapters of life, you know? What five-year-old can actually take out, a military dictator? I don't
Yeah.
know many. You know, there's moments when you're supposed to be the learner. There's moments when you're supposed to be the employee. There's moments when you're supposed to be just kinda in the backseat, working, learning, and in this, like, life moves at its own pace, you know? And here's the thing, you do have your foot on the gas. You can kinda go at your own pace as well, but also life has its own pace. And, the will and the intellect are different things, where the will, again, moves through life, it acts upon things. The intellect doesn't do that necessarily. Of course, transmits energy and receives energy, which, you can use the intellect to manifest great things. But yeah, it's like I think a lot of people think that they need to be, Andrew Tate level rich and famous off the jump and not enjoy the journey. And I know that's so cliche, especially like for people that really feel like they're in the dumps. They're watching this video like, how the fuck do I become the main character? It's like I do want to say like enjoy somewhat of a slow process. Get some wheels going, like we'll get you out of there sometime. I want to create that momentum for them, but it's like also just this acceptance of like, don't put this just insane amount of prestige as what is going to satisfy you. Or again, the accolades, or I see it in MMA all the time where it's like great rising stars get title shots or high level contender shots. And, they definitely have the chops, but there's some sort of weakness that they have to get exposed to get to that next level.
Mhm.
And a lot of times they get written off. A lot of times they hit that loss and they go into the shadows and they really don't recover.
Mm.
Other people are like, that was supposed to happen, sucks. But actually, it's a good thing in hindsight because now I'm refining myself.
Mhm.
Just be about it, man.
Yeah, I like how you also brought up the notion of like we all have different forms of idols, people we look up to when we're growing up. And more often than not, when we try to set, it's like they create a certain anchor of what's possible. And that's very inspiring. But when we strive to be exactly like them, then that's when we lose our own main character because now we're trying to play someone else's role. We're not playing the role that was given to us divinely. You know what
That's
I mean?
good. That's
And I
good.
feel like we're artists, like we're both hip hop artists, right? And one thing that you learn when you make your own art is when you're first starting, you're imitating. There's like the whole thing where like great artists steal kind of thing. I forget the exact phrase.
Yeah.
Um, but like when you're starting out, you're imitating, emulating people that you look up to. But at a certain point, you need to embrace your own style. You need to find what is my own thing, what is me. in my instance, what is Jamal? Who is Jamal? And what does it mean for Jamal to be a main character in this lifetime? What is the most meaningful, dope ass autobiography that I'm gonna write every single day with my actions? Right now, it's recording this podcast.
Mm.
It could be many different things, and that's the cool thing is like there's a degree of agency, and so much of the indoctrination system that you call schooling is designed to destroy that agency within you to strive to embody that, discover what your own style even is. It's saying, hey, look, you can become a doctor, you can become this. It's showing you predefined paths of how to fit into the world. And there's a value to adapting to the world. That's part of the role of schooling. I'm not someone that's saying, yo, like completely fuck the world, do whatever. Like, no, you need to also cater to the way things are to a degree. But, as part of the balancing act, I think if you completely reject any notion of needing to integrate with the world, then that's where you put yourself more so at the threat of an unhealthy level of narcissism.
Yeah, I want to talk about complexes, indoctrination, like you're saying. I think a lot of people have like these pivotal moments when they're shaped at a young age, and it's like an astral or mental body imprint.
Mm.
And so again, like I wanted to talk about like authenticity a little bit, where it's like people are like, well, be authentic, to be the main character, you got to be authentic. But, if I was authentic to my ego, if I was authentic to these core wounds, for instance, like a core wound happens where like a girl rejects me and leaves me for a rich dude. And so you're like, I got to get my money up. And then you join this crusade to get your money up. And in the meantime, I there's this phrase in like quantum medicine where it's like if you have the presence of a charge, that charge is the guarantee that that thing is going to show up in your life.
Mm.
So yeah, you might get your money up, but if you have the presence of this charge of abandonment, fear of abandonment more so, that doesn't matter where you move, doesn't matter who you're dating, the likelihood of that showing up in your reality is almost guaranteed. And so when you're authentic to these parts of you without doing the shadow work that's so important of like, I want to get my money up, but like what more is up? What more is at play here?
Yeah.
Obviously the presence of abundance in your life, great. But these precursors to our desires and our agendas need to be looked at. Why I'm saying this more so is like the desire for fame.
Hmm.
The desire for fame comes down to a lot of times not this benevolent, I want to impact people in the most beautiful way possible. World's crazy, not enough people are stepping up. I want to do my thing. It comes down to I want love and I want people to think like I'm the coolest thing ever and they can never live their life without me and they'll never leave me. Or that I can have any girl I want at any time or whatever that is, that stuff. So it's like these complexes, these shadow personalities are created and we say, let's go be authentic, just go be authentic. If you say that to a high school girl, that is probably going to be different than if you go to a sage and you're like, what's authentic to you? You
Right.
know?
I'm so glad that you brought more nuance to the whole authenticity conversation because, like, that's the new modern day gospel, especially among the whole like people in the creator economy. Like, oh, be authentic. Authenticity is your greatest asset. All of this, and it's true. But what? How do you audit your own authenticity? How do you even know what is genuinely authentic and what is not? That requires an extremely high level of self knowledge, and to do that, you need to get feedback from other people. And like you said, how do you know you're not moving from a place, a particular charge, a complex, a wound that's actually not you? You know what I'm saying? That's the whole in the whole Vedic philosophy. They have the whole thing around the neti, which is like it's in part of Jnana Yoga, which is the path of self knowledge, or self realization, and the neti is identifying it's not this, not this. So
Mhm.
being able to shed all the layers of what you thought you were, but you actually weren't. So much of what we call, authenticity is based on just layers of assumptions built on the top of this is I wanted validation from my father. And then all these different assumptions led to you pursuing a particular career. Like I'm being authentic in this pursuit. How do you know that? You know
See,
what I'm saying? So it's like I
authentic to the intellect the astral body, but is it to the higher self, you know?
And that's where the spiritual practices are indispensable because a lot of people speak about the self in the singular. You know what I'm saying? Like they just see the self as yourself. The various different spiritual sciences, esoteric sciences, you can study many different schools of thought. We come from the breed of Omram, and he teaches about the higher self and the lower self, right? And he's not the only one that teaches a particular model that doesn't just regard the self as a singular thing. I mean, even the transpersonal depth psychologists, one of the main observations they've made is that we're actually composed of a fragmented, like pool of all these different fragmented sub personalities is what they call it. Like the notion that we just have like one singular personality, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, look how many times we speak to ourselves in a day, how
Mhm.
many different parts of us react to different environments. We're not just like one. Yes, there is some singular thing that unites the whole thing, so to speak. And when it doesn't, you have what's called multiple personality disorder. So there is some central, conscious agency that's uniting it all. I'm speaking to all of that because we have to have more nuance, like you said, that you're adding around what true authenticity is. I think to discover that requires some practices that allow you to hear the whispers of your own higher self, to be able to listen to that intuition. Because that's really the guiding force throughout that whole journey of life, the video game we're playing,
Mhm.
that's guiding us to, like on some Zelda shit, go to the water temple and do this, and then the side quests.
Wait.
But it's like,
That was a tough one.
you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I wanna talk about this, like, spectrum. So there's main character, I call it avatar,
yeah.
and then there's NPC. And on NPC, there's someone who lacks autonomy and self-awareness. It's almost like they don't realize they have a choice, they fall into the same thing, and, they just don't know their options. They don't know they have free will and they can actually go that way and do that thing and use their brain to guess what more is out there. And so that's like, low power level. As you get towards as you get towards main character, quote unquote, it's almost like this amplifier. It's an increase of wattage. And so what are we choosing to do with that wattage, Like that's what I'm concerned with.
Yeah.
Also, another thing is looking at your life, and there's two main words that I want to bring up. There's the dharma, the life path,
Mhm,
and things are literally written in the stars for us.
mhm,
And there's also the karma. So we come from this Omram teaching where they say karma is this very, very mathematical science that's laid for you, even if you feel like it sucks and you hate it. Look at your dharma, and there's these yearnings in your soul. Omram talks about that, thoughts, you don't create thoughts, you attract thoughts based on previous conditions, whether a thought attracts another thought of similar resonance, whether an emotion attracts a thought of similar resonance. An environment attracts certain thoughts. Obviously, you go into church, permeated, beautiful energy. Certain thoughts are going to be attracted to you. You're not going to necessarily think about sports or some random shit on the subway. You're going to be like in this presence. So when you're born, he says that there are certain thoughts that never leave you.
mhm,
And those thoughts are little guiding forces. When you're a kid, you're like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And those are things that you need to really pay attention to. So dharma kind of spells itself out, but also the karma of like, not only there's things that happen that you'd be surprised that that has to do with previous incarnations.
mhm,
And so it's like, what I always say is karma is like an IKEA cabinet put in a box, and it's really an upgrade blessing, but you gotta, like, take it apart, realize, like, "Oh, this is the lesson. Oh, I could have developed a level of will that I instead remove self-agency from the equation and I fucked something up." Or, "Oh, I got this sign 3 times and I ignored it, so I got rid of my intellect." Or, "Oh, I was cruel to this person." Understanding that karma is not this instant payoff of this item you can go use in your quest. Sometimes, you gotta build it, you gotta take it apart, and, just look at what you're dealing with and try to find, like, what is the bonus, what is the treasure in this? Is it increased strength? Is it increased compassion, morality, mercy? Is it increased intelligence? Is it going through that, just through the butterfly effect, you meet someone that changes your life.
I'm glad you brought the notion of dharma and karma into the conversation as well. Uh, we could say there's a few kind of very metaphysical, philosophical perspectives that I would like to offer to contemplate. The first, I like to think that prior to incarnating, so to speak, we're gonna assume and imply that reincarnation is real as we have been, and we're gonna go into other podcasts why it's the most plausible thing to explain, human souls on Earth, all of this. But I like to imagine that prior to incarnating, you wrote out your whole story of your life.
Mhm.
So there's an element of fate involved of the story that you've already written that you're living out, and you're getting a degree in a particular subject. And your Carl Jung addressed this brilliantly in his autobiography called Memories, Dreams, and Reflections on the chapter called Life After Death. And he was offering his clinical, perspective and opinions on reincarnation and the importance of holding an attitude towards life after death, all this kind of stuff. And he was suggesting something that still blows my mind today, and I've haven't heard anyone discuss this like in the media, which was the notion that the we are part of the meaning of our lives is discovering the unanswered questions of our ancestors.
Crazy.
That their life ended on a particular note where they didn't get to answer a particular question. So at the core of her life, and there's a brilliant quote, I don't have it off the like top of my head, but something along the lines of like he Jung was saying that he felt that his life was a question, that he was like the living question, and his whole life story was articulating and discovering the answer to that question, which
Mhm.
then became his whole body of work. That was his expression of finding that answer to that question, which he connected to his ancestors that came before him. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that's another big perspective to contemplate in terms of metaphysically trying to identify your own main character. Is it's you can't separate it from your entire genealogy and all your ancestry that came before you. There's threads of questions that didn't get answered, and you're part of the living answer to that, or the living like agent that's the question moving through to find the answer to that particular question. Um anyway, just on the topic of dharma, karma, and then on the karma thing as well, is like the karma is essentially I believe it translates exactly to action. And
Mhm.
that's actually what karma means. So karma yoga is one of the main types of yoga, which is all through service to others, things of this nature. Um, but another thing is like asking yourself how, like, we're constantly receiving reflections from reality, right? It's the whole law of resonance or echo. You're on a mountain, you say love, and then it comes back love, love, love. Say like hate, you're gonna get the hate back to you, so to speak. So
Yeah.
when our reality, part of becoming a main character versus a narcissist, is when reality reflects back an image, a feeling, a thought, uh, that is not desirable, that is not what your desire for you to live, then part of becoming a main character is identifying, well, this came from me. The origin of this echo was some form of action that I've done, either now or if you want to go deeper philosophically, previously. But the way to get through that is to identify the lesson so that what I'm emitting is going to be light, peace, love, where the kind of reality that I want to construct. Whereas a narcissist, when that comes back, it's always blamed on some external factor. Some other person is the one to blame for why this isn't. There's no genuine sense of responsibility. So I think that's a challenge, a perspective I like to offer to the whole main character energy, is that radical responsibility of accepting that if you're not where you're at in your reality, then identifying the present lesson. You don't have to worry about 100 lessons from now, but like something right now in this present moment is being brought to your awareness, and can you pay attention to that and then level up, and then those level up stack up to where you want to ultimately end up.
Yeah. 100. Yeah, no, I was talking about like that wattage idea because that's the negative side of the narcissist. It's like you're parasitic, potentially you're vampiric, and then, you're just thinking about shit that doesn't really matter and trying to drag us all into this delusion, and it's just not the move, man.
Mhm,
There comes this point when you got to realize like the world is also very sick. We live in a very sick society, like shadow leagues everywhere, like laying crazy traps for us. And if you're not careful, they're gonna tell you who you are. If
mm,
you're not careful, they're gonna imprint these complexes that you go out and fulfill. So to be like a healthy main character, there's like a level of self-revelation where how do you really get in contact with the conscience, the higher self, the inner voice, so you actually find out what does Jamal want? What does Ben want? It takes a little bit of time. It takes some silence. It takes a longer, extended, multi-year process. But it starts today, and like there's little things along the way that you're gonna have these crazy aha moments. And the number one thing is like again, back to a main character is he's badass or she's badass. And like they they're not they might falter and be influenced by the world here and there, but there's this moment in the story when they break free of that spell, and you're like, "Fuck yeah, that's amazing." So it's like here and there, yeah, we're human, you can get influenced and falter, but overall, you need to just lock the fuck in and realize like people are out to get you. People are, and I'm not trying to be sketchy or paranoid. It's like it is to a degree, not fully a dog eat dog world where if I can step on you and make you feel like you're insignificant, I'm starting to use this strategy of intimidation, so you're less of a threat to me. You're less of a threat to overthrowing the system. You're less of a threat to, overcoming me in the market if we're competing in the market or something like that. So you just got to learn what spells are people projected on me. Maybe you don't even need to know them in general, but that's why we did that whole psychic self-defense thing too, because it's like you got to learn like I can't fuck with this. I can't let these notions that the world is thrusted on me that are not true. I can't let them infiltrate my psyche and then me act them out. I gotta like really know what the fuck's going down, and I gotta be my own person.
amen. Yeah, it's like we have to be aware. I think you're really highlighting the importance of being aware that, like, the ultimate at the heart of all the various different psychic attacks and traps, so to speak, that are set out is to forget who you are, to forget who you truly are and why you came here and what your mission is. And when you veer off to start to play an inauthentic role to fit into the world, which I've done countless times. That's part of, we're all doing that to a degree, going in waves of like, you start to go on a siege where you're like really building momentum towards becoming that full main character. And then you might get hit with some family dynamics and things that pulls you back out, and you start to center yourself more around society and finances and thing. And then you take a risk and now you're back into becoming, so like there's different ways in which we can be pulled in and out. And that's part of, the whole journey. But I think it's important to be aware that at the heart of those psychic attacks is to make you forget who you actually are and get lost in trying to be someone that you're not. Um, and yeah, part of that is with that awareness, you can apply, the psychic self-defense that we're speaking into. Um, yeah, and then hopefully over time the mission becomes clearer and clearer. We could say your project of incarnation, what you came here to do, your calling. Um, but yeah, man, I think that's a very satisfying answer
Yeah.
to this challenging question.
I'll end with this. Just the development of wisdom is so important because what really are we supposed to be doing in this world? But we have so much free time to start to figure out like what's really up. Like how should I really be moving? Um, that's important, man. So salute, bro. That's it.
Salute.